Hello, everyone. I hope I didn't just blast in right then and there. I have my microphone pretty close to me, and I think the gain was a little too high. So let me know if audio is sounding good. And then if that is, then we will get to video. But hopefully you guys are doing well. That was my track not Sunkissed, Second Chances, which that was released April of 2023. So I've been busy trying to get some albums in. Let me check the comments here. Audio is great, says my wonderful prof and channel member. Thank you so much. And since we have that, we'll get that banner off the screen here. And then we will, let me just clear off my desk a little bit for a second. There we go. And turn on the camera. Good. I'm glad audio sounded good. All right, there we go. I'm a little tall. I'm a little cropped up. 1 second. Let me just adjust the computer for 1 second. Without turning my computer off. Let's see if that was better. Yeah, I think so. Okay, good. We are in the business. I don't know how the phrase. I don't even know what phrase I'm thinking about. But we're ready. We're ready. We're on. We're on the air. Okay, so we're going to be talking about talent today, and a strange social phenomena that I have not really been aware of, or I didn't even know about until like a couple days ago. So we're going to be talking about the word talent and what it means, what it really means, and what artists think it means, and talk about the inaccuracies of why they respond in outlandish ways. Not outlandish, but we're going to be talking about talent. And actually, let's welcome the chat. We'll talk about what Andreas Hernandez has to say, because I think he's on to something. So we've got my wonderful prof first in saying, I'm ready to hear some passionate truth. It's going to be passionate. I have no notes. This is totally off the cuff, as it's been per usual. But yeah, I feel like I have a lot to say. Hopefully I say it all. I don't know. Or just, it's going to be, I have a feeling it's going to be rapid fire. So Andreas, you say, I think the reason artists would hate that word talent is because talent shows how you are born, something we can't control, while skills is something we can learn and master. So I like how you are capitalizing. I mean, I'll just go ahead and put it up. You're capitalizing the word skills and master, because we're going to be talking about mastery. Yeah, I think that this is a very important topic to talk about, especially speaking from experience, since I have some mastery over a few things. And how it plays with hard work, practice, and also talent. You also add, talent is something we have to be lucky and born with, and that is something we have no control over, as you say. While I do think there are some skills that are naturally people are naturally better at than others, is something like art, something that can be learned. And so, yeah, we're going to be talking about all of that. We're going to be covering all the bases there. Brian Gilmartin says should be an interesting topic, I think, because we're talking about art. We're, you're an artist, I'm an artist in different ways. So it's something I'm very passionate about. So we will start. We've got Private Eye, welcome. We've also got Ghost Plan. If I did not welcome you, welcome. I didn't want to miss you there. Crystal Ash is in the house. Thank you so much for joining us. And we've got Adiga Outlaw. If you like your dark fantasy and sci-fi, go check out his books on his YouTube channel, but also on Amazon. All right. So I think that is everyone so far. So yeah, okay. Didn't want to make sure I was like sitting too tall there. Okay, good. So let me grab a swig of water and we'll just jump right in. Probably be a lecture. I don't know. It's going to be just totally off the cuff. It might be even emotional even. It might be like, I don't know if it's going to be Star Wars levels of angry, but I won't say anger. I'm just going to say annoyance. So 1 sec. Let me just grab a little more water and I'll be right back. Okay. I'm back. So, I don't know where this surfaced on my YouTube feed in recent days, but it did. And it kind of carried me down the rabbit hole the more videos I was looking in. But it was basically whether it's a musician or an artist or maybe even a psychologist or a person interested in psychology. I was listening to different YouTubers, people I don't know, just random videos. I decided to just select a video at random, but they were all saying the same thing. Started with a seamstress, then a musician, and then and the like. So turns out that if you call an artist talented, take a step back because they might hit you. They might get mad. They might get offended. And over the course of my years as a musician myself, as a music teacher, as someone who's performed just by myself or with my students or with other musicians, I've been called talented for over the span of many years, many times over. And never once was I ever offended. Never once did I find that to be an insult. Because in my view, and I don't think this is my view, I think this is an objective term. I mean, we could look it up together. I don't know. I didn't look it up before this stream. But in my opinion, talent is a natural disposition or sensibility towards something, toward a specialty of some kind. This can be this can be found in art, in the arts, with painting, with piano playing, or it can be found in sports if you have a little bit more aptitude physically, with stature and stamina and what have you, with things like basketball. It could be a talent for social aptitude. Some people are just naturally born to speak eloquently and succinctly and probably, we haven't seen it in recent days, but probably be that perfect politician or at least teacher, but someone who has a natural aptitude for something like public speaking or playing an instrument or learning music. Now, I've always known this. In my experience, I've always known that I had more aptitude for something like music, more than some people. There have been some people that are better, way better at their instruments than I am at the violin, or way better at understanding music than I am. But I have a very strong aptitude with something like music as early as I can remember, like age 4. I mean, I think my mom still has in her possession, I think, I'm not sure. At one point she did a few years ago, she had in her possession cassette tapes of my sister and I. I'm a twin, so both of us were 4 years old at the time, and we were singing songs with my grandpa who was playing on his guitar. We were singing in pitch, and we I think if I remember correctly, we were doing harmony a little bit, just a little bit of harmony and a little bit of melody. And when I was playing video games with my sister, we would sing along with the soundtracks and we would harmonize with the soundtracks. We just had this just sensibility that was just, we were naturally born, no, natural born. We're a natural born music maker or music player or whatever. That's what I mean to say. And so I've always been aware that I have had the gift of music. It's innate. I came with it. I come into the world, and I think just what happened was music came along with me, and my brain and that propensity to stick with music came with me. And I could safely say of this for some of my students. I can also safely say that some of my students, I know I've had a handful of students that I really encourage them to pursue other things because one, even with some practice, even with their devotion to music, they were not excelling. And they because of that, they weren't getting any enjoyment with music. And I said, "Well, I would love for you to find something else. Maybe you're into gymnastics, maybe you're into cooking, maybe you're into reading and writing." And some parents took that advice, some parents did not take that advice. They wanted their kid to be good at music, and that was the end of it. And some of my students have struggled because they do not have the aptitude, whether physically handling the instrument or musically, not getting the beat, not even hearing the beat in their head, whether it's a kid or an adult. So I'm speaking from personal experience. All of this to say, we're getting to the point of this lecture. I'm speaking from personal experience that I know in my heart of hearts that talent indeed does exist. And it exists with people very early on in life and in a very specific specialty. And for others, it doesn't exist. Or if talent does exist, it's in another specialty away from music. So that's my point. I do believe talent is that natural sensibility towards something, toward a specialty. So talent exists. Now, let's talk about people's negative reaction to that word talent, because many artists who've been, even with even at their craft for years. Like the seamstress who was talking about it on her YouTube channel, this dressmaker or costume maker. I'm not sure exactly her specific occupation, but she she really was explaining why she did not like people calling her talented, because every time she's called talented, and this is true with other artists, every time she's called talented, she's thinking that people are disregarding all the years of effort and practice. Now, I think that's actually a wrong thing to think, because I don't think someone who's calling you talented is saying, "Oh, no, we're disregarding the years of practice and dedication to your craft." No, they're just admiring you for your skills. Like, "Oh, you have mastered this. That is admirable." That's usually what I would think if I were to call someone talented. I said, "Wow, you are so talented in this." I know that I'm thinking, "Well, you've had time and experience to devote yourself to this craft, but you're just naturally gifted at this. There's just something about you, something about your disposition right here in this area that is just admirable, and I wanna thank you for your performance. I wanna thank you for your service," whatever the case is. That's what I think when I think of the word talented. But Yeah, conversely, I don't think it's conversely. I would say, that's been my experience with the word talent, but with the seamstress, for instance, or with this guitar player that I saw on another channel, they were saying, "No, when people call me talented, they are disregarding, they're dismissing all my months and years of hard work and dedication to this." And I think, and then they get onto this other diatribe, which is linked to this idea. It's like, and I think they're just using the word talent like this, silver bullet or this magic bullet that gives them the excuse that they don't have to try because they don't have this inborn talent. So they're really, these artists are scoffing at the word talent as if it's just a magical thing that either people have or don't have. And if you don't have it, you don't have to work at it, or you don't have to work at that craft. So that's a little bit of just a tease of where I'm going with this, but I think it's talent and hard work. And when you look on YouTube, when you look at these artists scoffing at the word talent, they are dismissing talent in favor of hard work. Now, I don't understand why, because as a music teacher and as someone who's practiced her instrument for years and years and years, it's talent and hard work. The two go hand in hand. And some people might have a little bit more talent starting off. I have students who can hold the instrument. I'm like, "Yeah." Like, some a student or 2 will actually be able to hold the violin naturally, and that takes them, like, 1 or 2 days to get used to, and then it will take weeks for other students to get used to it, just because of their sensibilities to things. And it's like, "Okay, well, you have good coordination, you have good posture, you are very good at this." Some of my other students know music, but they are terrible with their technique. They're very slow. They progress very slowly with their violin technique. Maybe they have a sense of beat, maybe they can read music, but they don't have the the accuracy and that technique they need to produce a very good sound, even if they know what music should sound like or if they have a sense of beat. So there are so many factors that play into all sorts of people. If we want to talk about diversity, there is a diversity of gifts. There's a diversity of aptitude. Some people are stronger at one thing over another thing, stronger at this instrument over this instrument, stronger at sports over music. For instance, I was on the C team when I tried out for volleyball, and I thought, well, I could spend the same amount of hours in volleyball that I did with violin, and I wouldn't be a good volleyball player. I just would not be in the professional on a professional volleyball team. I just know that about myself. Like, or dance. Dance is another thing. I wasn't the best dancer. I took a modern well, maybe it was because it was modern dance, I don't know. I have a sense of rhythm, but I do not have the coordination like some people would naturally have for dancing. And so there's just a plethora of different factors that go into this idea of talent. It's not, I don't think it can be quantifiable. A lot of these people who are talking about talent, they're saying, well, you're only going to be a master at this if you have 10,000 hours. And I'll give you a very specific example because this was actually a study done in Germany. for an institute. There was a psychologist who came up with this conclusion after surveying, I think, 40 violin students, and the pros who would be like top tier world class performers, well, they had 10,000 hours behind them. The professional musicians who were not the elite world class musicians who could play in an orchestra, they had about 8,000 hours behind them. And then the music teachers, the people who are like, you should just teach music, not play music or whatever, which is kind of funny for me as a performer and a music teacher. Um, that they say, well, they had about 5,000 hours or 4,000 hours behind them. And so the psychologist doing the study, I think he was German. I don't know his name, or maybe he was American who went to Germany. But he was positing that, well, you're not going to be a world class performer until you have at least 10,000 hours behind you. And I think I can't do the math. I think I did the math a long time ago. I think if you did 1 hour a day to get to 10,000 hours, I think that's like 27 years, or you guys do the math, but I think it'd be a long time. So therefore, you really have to pack that into like, 5 to 8 hours a day to get to a mastery level much faster. Now, this is purely, oh, excuse me. Sorry, one second. Oh. Sorry about that. I think I had like a pistachio, leftover pistachio. But anyway, so he was purely working with something that is quantifiable. Now, this is a little ludicrous because some people can achieve mastery at a much shorter time. We have things like prodigies, which was also scoffed at by these artists. Well, Mozart, for instance, and Tiger Woods, for instance, they had parents who taught them. It's like not every prodigy had a naturally gifted parent or a naturally gifted guardian or went to, a top tier school. Some prodigies were discovered and then they were working tirelessly to get to performance level. But some people, they're, especially with violin, there are prodigies at like 4 years old that like, wow, I didn't get to that level until like 25 years old. So, some people are just, truly gifted with this inborn talent for music like violin playing and can achieve like top tier levels of mastery in a fraction of the time. And so this social phenomenon that I just discovered, where there's this real negativity, there's the negative response to the word talent by these artists is pretty telling, because what's happening is they're conflating. This is the problem. This is the inaccurate part of it. They're conflating talent with the word mastery, because they're saying, well, there's no such thing as talent because you can't just pick up a violin and just start playing symphony music. It's like, no, but you could still show talent by picking up the violin and slowly learning appropriate string crossing and an appropriate line of the bow, lining up, parallel to the bridge, or playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star by the end of the week. That's still talent, even if you're not playing a Mozart symphony by the end of the week. So people really are grossly conflating talent with mastery. Now, as far as mastery is concerned, it takes talent and practicing, working out that talent to achieve levels of mastery. But that's what I have to say. So we're going to get into the chat, and then I feel like there will be more ideas, more dialogue coming on from this idea. So just as a recap, what's my opinion? Talent does exist. Some people are just born with a natural talent for something over other people, or maybe those people are born with another talent that other people aren't born with. Talent exists, and to achieve that level of mastery over something, it's that talent plus hours and weeks and months and years of constant commitment and dedication and practice. Those really are the two ingredients for achieving a level of mastery of something. Actually, one thing I wanted to say too, and I don't know how accurate this example would be. I'll give you another example from my own personal experience. I am not a natural writer. And now I've told you I'm working on science fiction. I love reading science fiction. I love writing science fiction. But when I started, I I didn't have that ability like I had for violin or music. And my reading comprehension was really low, really all throughout my childhood. My reading comprehension is just it wasn't good. Professor Geek, on the other hand, he can just see things. He can see things, how things are lined up, not just with grammar, but with sentence structure and with ideas. I mean, he just has a this natural ability. He worked on it, of course, but he had this natural ability from the beginning to develop that and have everything fall in place. It just seems things are really things come naturally for him when it comes to writing and reading comprehension, which makes sense because he's an actual professor of such things. And so he can comprehend themes in very dense pieces of literature, for instance, well-written literature. I'm not talking about literature that's more, modern. I don't want to say modern, but postmodern literature. I'm not talking about that. Um, I'm not talking about literature that would be served in the liberal arts these days, but good pieces of masterfully done fiction or nonfiction. Prof has that ability that I'm only getting to after years of practicing my writing and years developing my reading comprehension. Because even when I was a graduate student, my essays and my ideas and how I wrote down those ideas were not good. They just weren't. I was not natural at writing and reading like I am at music. So that's another example. Um, could I acquire a level of talent now with such things? I think the more I develop it, but it's taking me much longer to get better at my writing than it ever was with playing violin, for instance. All right, so I wanted to drop that example before we get into the chat. Brian says, just happen to have some tea for the stream. Well, wonderful. Yeah, this is the time of day where I have my green tea. Yeah, I have black coffee in the morning, like noon, because I'm nocturnal. And then I'll have green tea after I finish my coffee. Lynn Green is with us. Good to see you. You can only stay for about 45 minutes, but you'll catch the rest in the morning. That is totally fine. Big Al, welcome. Hope you are doing well. I'm doing much better this week. So I wasn't streaming last Sunday, really because we had Alyssa, Prof's daughter, for an extra day. And it's wonderful, but it's just a really full week, with her because she's full-time care, really. And so everything was pushed to Sunday. And I usually clean right after he leaves to drop her off with her mother. And so everything was pushed into Sunday. And I needed, because I teach the very next day, I teach Monday. I was like, I need that day to just write. And it worked. I wrote about a little over 1,000 hours, 1,000 words. That'd be a lot. That'd be impossible. 1,000 hours in a day. I wrote a little over 1,000 words that Sunday, and I felt so much more refreshed and focused and happy. Then I got food poisoning. So I'm glad I got the food poisoning after writing the 1,000 words, but it was rough. It was a rough day, but I feel all better now. All right. Grab some water. I wonder if these reactions to the word talent, Brian Gilmartin says, you wonder if these reactions to the word talent are born from some kind of insecurity. It could be insecurity. That's what they say of other people who don't have a magical talent. What they say, or what I've heard them say from their own experience, is they say it with more resentment or bitterness. They see the word as an insult because the people who are trying to compliment them or think they're complimenting them, well, they're being dismissive of all the hard work that I put into this craft. It's like, take a chill pill. Like that. I know people know that it takes many years to get to a mastery level of some kind. Oh. So it could be insecurity, Brian. I don't know, but they speak it more not out of insecurity, but out of bitterness, like resentment, like you're disregarding all the work I put into this. Like, no, they're not. They're probably not. They're probably admiring you. Okay. And as an artist myself, like beholding a beautiful exhibition of paintings, for instance, if I meet the artist in person, I would compliment the art, I would tell them what I'd like about their work, and then I may drop that word talent just because that's the natural way of expressing, at least in the English language, that's a natural way of expressing, "My goodness, you're good at this." Like, talent is it it is more linked to the word good. Like, "Oh, you're natural at this, you're good at this, you're talented at this." And, yeah, if the paintings are good, that person might have a little bit of talent. Definitely more talent for painting than I would. Sammy Proctor, hello. Hopefully you are doing good this Sunday. Professor Geek, my wonderful prof and channel member, says, I will never be a mathematician no matter how many hours I devote to it. Yeah, some people just don't have that. Prof has he's a wordsmith. Maybe that's a silly word to I kind of like that word, but I've heard people not like that word. I don't know why, but like a blacksmith has this natural ability and mastery over metals and 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 shaping things into various utensils and weaponry and all that. Uh, and so I feel like my prof is just a natural born wordsmith. And then, yes, he struggles with numbers. Oh, yeah. Okay, Lynn Green is, she speaking of numbers, she pointed out 27.4 years. So if you dedicated an hour to your craft, only 1 hour every day, it would still take you over 27 years. I thought it was that number or close to it. I couldn't remember. And yeah, exactly. So I don't know if this is true, but if you do know this, Da Vinci didn't have talented parents. Um, I do have a musically talented father. And I would say if he devoted his craft very diligently, then he could output a lot of good things in the way of songwriting. My mother did do music for a little bit in her grade school days and middle school days, and then I have a grandmother who played hymns. She learned piano on her own and played hymns for uh, the church because her husband, my grandfather, was a Presbyterian pastor. And apart from that, well, and my grandfather on my mom's side, he was a natural singer and guitar player, bass player, yodeler. He did a lot of old time country stuff. And then my sister and I just wanted to pick up any instruments that were, lying on the floor, usually mandolin or violin. And my posture was horrible. I saw old pictures of me when I was like 8 years old and my violin's like down here. But I tried fingering at the notes and I tried trying to produce that sound, and I can't remember if I did. And this was before I could read music, and then when I finally learned how to read music, that took a little bit of time. I remember I'm like, "Mom, what's that? No, I don't get it." I do remember that. That was in 4th grade. And because she played clarinet, she's like, "Well," I think she had a little bit of piano or something behind her. She's like, "I think, well, if you put that note there under the music staff next to that diagram there, that is your D string. Can you show me your D string?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." "And that's your A string?" "Oh, yeah." "Oh, okay. D, D, A, A. Okay, I got it." And then we practiced with the kitchen timer. I'm like, "Mom, how long do I have to practice?" And then something magical happened. I gotta tell you this story. Not story, but this is my musical experience. I'm very happy to say because I never remembered this about myself. It was my mom. My mom, a few years ago, we were talking and like, "Yeah, I probably had a hard time practicing or something." I loved music, but I'm sure I had a hard time practicing. And she's like, "Are you kidding me? Your sister and you couldn't stop practicing. In fact, I had to tell you to stop practicing so you could do your homework or go to bed. In fact, one time your sister did not turn in a homework assignment because she was too busy practicing the piano. She wanted to practice the piano. She didn't do her homework." I was like, "Really?" That was one time. I don't remember that. All I remember is just picking up my violin and just constantly playing. After I knew I could do it, I wouldn't stop. Some Most of my students don't practice. I do have a 5-year-old who does practice, and she is naturally talented. I hope she continues because she started reading music and plucking the violin notes, like, instantaneously. And I'm like, And I don't wanna I mean, I should tell her mother and father that she's more talented than the average player. Maybe I should. I try to tell her the saying, "Hey, you're doing things that I couldn't do at 9 years old, and you're doing it quite quickly." So that I think that makes her feel better, but she's s some of my students are very bright, and I'm stricter with them because of that, because I don't want them to lose it. But then when they don't practice, I'm like and then the parents say, "What should we do?" I'm like, "Well, you need to have her practice. You need to have him practice or you know, I don't say it so severely, but I'll say it severely now. They'll waste their talent. You can waste talent. That's the thing. There are I can't remember who said it. I read an article or I heard it on a YouTube video somewhere a long time ago where there are and it's probably a famous quote too. There are people working at Starbucks who could be natural NBA players. But maybe they don't know they have that talent. Maybe not. I feel like you do have a sensibility, like you feel something pressing. I feel like some people just have a sense of what they can do. I could be wrong about that. I think I haven't studied it. I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I always knew I had music in me. And I'll stop talking about me. Just I just can only speak from personal experience. So anyway, let's see. Ghost Planet says, "I'm good at singing. You can sing Lawrence and Kiss and Elton John, and you practice singing listening to music on YouTube." That's actually a very good thing, Ghost Planet, to do. I have a few vocal students now, and I say, "Hey, do, do you sing along with these songs that I'm giving you?" Because some of them, they're more adult students. They're having a hard time finding like a certain register. They can sing it the high notes real high. They can see the low. They some of them can sing the low notes very low, but somewhere in that middle range between the chest and the head voice and where you blend it, they lose all sense of pitch. And this is my first year teaching voice, and this is a steep learning curve for me. I can teach violin in my sleep. I could teach piano pretty easily, but man, oh man, oh man, teaching voice is a learning curve for me. Samuel Proctor said, "I wish I had that when I write. I haven't found a way to rein in my editing and critique in my head. Professor Geek, I would apologize for being distracted from going to stream last night, but I won't because I have a date this week." Well, hey, that's a good. Sorry, you were talking to Professor Geek. I decided to continue reading the comment. Good. I hope that date went well. Or if you have a date this coming week, yeah, that's great. Let's continue. Ghost Planet's mentioning autism. I will say I had an autistic student in North Carolina. Um, he was kind of in the tier between mid to high functioning. He loved his video games. And he could speak, he could answer questions, but it's not that he had a cognitive limitation of speaking, of answering directly, but you could tell his mind would wander to other things. But he was a great drummer. He was a drum student. I didn't teach him drums, obviously, but he also taught violin. He liked drums better than violin, but he could really pick up the violin. He was very poor with the physical part of it though, because of his posture. But there was one time I remember, I'll never forget. I give him a piece of music and he can read it a little bit, but I started just working with the structure of the music, and then I told him, I said, "Hey, Jonathan, can you find this thing in the piece of music and how many of these instances happen?" And like in 2 seconds, he's like, 11. And I'm like, that was fast. You're right. In fact, I had to count again, like, I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. 11. Okay, 11 times it happens. And I forgot what it was, dynamics or something. I can't remember. But and then there was another uh, older boy with autism who could sing and play drums very, very well. And yeah, so people with autism have this part of the brain that just responds to learning music at crazy exponential levels. Um, it's just more of a matter if more of the behavior if they can actually concentrate on one thing at a time in a class setting. All right. Let me grab some water. Lynn Green asks, "How does one determine words written? I gauge by page. Writing both sides of college rule, I get one side to the full page tip in typically a day." That's pretty good if you do that, like, every day. I mean, I gotta tell you guys this, for those of you who are into science fiction and fantasy, or even, I would say, any genre. Actually, with my mom, for a little bit, for different reasons, she stopped. Maybe she'll go back, but there's no pressure from me. But she had just for a short time in her life, she really wanted to write, and she started with short fiction. And I remember her fiction being pretty potent, and it was historical fiction. So whatever genre, it was great. She was actually in so creative. She was in this, perspective of this old buggy car, that, I can't remember. It was a car who was driven by a very famous person, I think in the turn of the century or something, and she it was great. The personification of this old car was great. Wait no, not turn of the century. It wasn't a horse buggy. I can't remember. When was the horseless carriage? Was that, like, I can't even remember when the car's invented. Sorry, guys, my history is not so good. Um, but, it was the very early stages of vehicle driving. I thought that was turn of the century, but whatever, I can't remember. Anyway, my point is short fiction, I know it's not popular, but I can't help but encourage people to start with short fiction. I mean, or write short fiction alongside your long fiction. There's something deeply special about finishing a piece of work within a relatively short time. That could be a month, that could be a week, that could be a day. But there's something personally rewarding and self-enriching that you just cannot achieve until you finish the longer piece of fiction. And so if you do spend 30 minutes a day writing and then reading, I would encourage reading as much as you can, fiction or nonfiction. If you just spend 30 minutes a day on your craft, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised how that will work exponentially in your favor. But the trick is it has to be every day. I think with my experience in SuperCollider, for instance, you've seen some. If you have seen me in my SuperCollider videos, I'm not as good as SuperCollider as I could be. I started, like, in 2015. It's almost 10 years. I'm like, "Man, I feel like I'm still scratching the surface with it." And that's because I haven't practiced it like an instrument like I should have. Like, that means 30 minutes a day. I think I would be much better at it than I am, because sometimes a whole month will go by. I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I haven't been in SuperCollider in a month." So, um, every day is important. Yeah, so Lynn Green, that's a very good consistent frequency. Consistent frequency. That's a little redundant. But no, that I like that. I like that idea. Okay, Lynn Green says she likes the word wordsmith. Yeah, I like it. All right. Hello, Ace, channel member. Good to see you. Professor says, "Kiss rocks. You have good taste, Ghost Planet." All right. Ace says the world needs more drummers. Finding a drummer that's not in a band is like finding an albino animal. I don't know if that's true. Oh, I've heard from other musicians that that could be true. Yeah. A good drummer is everything for every other musician. I play so much better on violin if the rhythm, especially if it's done by a very good drummer, I will improvise so much better on violin. Hello, stunning and brave Megatron. Megatron, channel member. Oh, you changed your avatar again. Cool. All right. Good to see you. You say since oh, well, let me post your comments since you are a channel member. Since I'm late, talent is something you develop, not something you're given. Actually, that's what some people believe. You So let me clarify, because actually my stream is a little bit uh, is a different perspective. Talent actually is something you have. Talent is a natural disposition or sensibility to a specialty of some kind, whatever that is. It's your responsibility to develop that talent into a level of mastery, and that's where practice comes in. Now, this is not to say to anyone out there, like someone who right now can not play the piano to save their lives, like I would say, I want to play the piano. I want to learn music. I need to play piano. I'm just not good. I don't have like a natural form on my hand. I don't know where the fingers are supposed to go. I can't read music. I can't read the bass clef. And to that I say, no, take the time to develop it. And then over time, if you see progress, it is a showing of some talent of some kind. It might be on a smaller scale than a person with a natural musical ability to read music very quickly. And not just read music, I'm just talking about the general thing. It could be posture, it could be form, it could be technique. Some of my students have very natural form on the piano. My sister had incredible form, like incredible hand posture. I remember like where I see a picture of me 10 years like at 10 years old, and my hands are like this on the piano. And then I can't do sitting back, but she's basically very nice posture, like very nice piano posture. I'm like, wow, dang, that's good. So my sister had instant piano technique. Some people don't. I have a lot of students who do, a lot of students who don't. Um, to that, I say, if you don't have a natural ability for piano, just give yourself time and make sure you have a very good, make sure you have good instruction. That you have a good, please have a good teacher. I have adopted so many piano students that the teacher just said, "Ah, that's good enough. That's good enough." And then they're guessing what they're playing. They don't even know what they're playing because they. I found out quite quickly that the music that was in front of them, they were just kinda, like, looking at the fingers and they're like, "Okay, I guess it's that note." And I'm like, "Oh, we got a lot of work to do." But just give yourself time. And then with that development, even if you don't have natural talent, it's still worth the endeavor. Um, that's actually a lot of things, or I would say that's a main problem that these artists had, their negative reaction to the word talent is because they were saying that it's wrong to think that how do I put this? They were assuming, and maybe correctly, assuming that people who didn't have talent just said, "Well, I don't have the talent, so I'm not gonna pursue it." Now that is a not so good a mindset. Just because you don't have that ability, if you want to do it, and if you have enough gumption and commitment, and you devote yourself to that craft for at least a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, do it. Do it. Just because you don't have the ability instantly or a natural ability for something, do it anyway. And a lot of artists say you shouldn't let people who say you're not talented stop you from pursuing that. That is, I will say that's true. Like even if you a lot of people, these artists were looking at social feedback. Well, this person said this person wasn't talented and they should quit, and so the person quit. I'm like, okay, that's dumb. That's irresponsible. Like, if you want to do something, do it, regardless. What level of talents you have there. But so talent is maybe yeah, talent is something you do develop, but it is also something that you naturally have as well. Yeah, Brian, I think this is important. I often hear talent and skill used interchangeably, and they're very close, but there is a distinction. There is a distinction. Yeah. And all right, I think we're done toward the comment section? All right. Um, we are talking about sketchbooks and all that. All right, so I think that's all I wanted to say, unless you guys had something else to say. Let me grab some water real quick. That thumbnail that I posted, Uh, um, Actually, she is, Yuja Wang. She is, like, the top tier concert pianist for all the world. She's been famous for a while, and, she's I would say, you could take her, and then you could take a person with the same amount of playing as she has played, and there would be some discrepancy. She just I'm not saying she hasn't devoted herself to piano and hasn't played 10 hours a day. I'm not saying that. She's probably skipped some meals. She's probably skipped playing with friends or something, but she just has she is one of the best concert pianists ever. At least to grace the world, at least in these contemporary times. And so, that's my thumbnail. I thought it was good. I was like, "Oh, it's kind of a yellow brown like my last thumbnail," but I was like, "Oh, that's just too good, just too good a thumbnail." Private Eye says, I've been drawing for the past 6 months. I have only a few references on how to draw the Marvel way. I know it's not much. I'm looking for a teacher, but I don't have the money right now. Yeah, teachers are expensive. I've said this before. Whether you go to an art studio or you hire someone, you go to their personal studio, maybe at their home, and they teach you. I don't know what it's like with art teachers, music teachers. You can average like a competent music teacher. Um, the competent to the professional, like teaching professionals, like for me, for my level, I'd have to like pay like a teacher $200 a session because I'm at that level. And one day I would like to have a session again because I sometimes I feel like my violin playing is lacking a little bit. But you can find, depending on looking around, you can find a really good teacher uh, between 50 and $100 an hour. I charge 50 an hour. That's really on the low end for someone who's professional. But I honestly don't mind not charging any more than that if it means that the person can get some good instruction. And like I really do try to get the fundamentals down, the music fundamentals down, because as soon as when I see a student having played an instrument for like 3 years or whatever and still not know notes, it's really hard to stomach. I just don't I do not appreciate teachers out there. In the United States, you don't have to be certified to be a public music teacher. I'm not talking about schools. You do have to be certified to teach at the public schools if you're teaching music class. But with teaching music like at a store or even just in your own home, you don't need a special certification. I think in Europe you do. And in a way, yeah, it would be a pain in the butt to have to get your certification just so you can teach music lessons, but the more I adopt new students, like piano students, whatever the case is, it's like, "Man, you did not get the right instruction." I re it kinda hurt my heart a little bit, but, this girl wanted to play this game, this music based on a video game, which I provided the transcription for in this, on my YouTube channel. I'll probably actually show that, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, she wanted she likes this video game music, and so I said, "Oh, okay, well, I'll find a transcription for you to play." And then the one I found was just so messy, so I'm like, "Well, I can clean it up and I'll make it better. I'll make it more readable." And it's about if you're starting with piano, this is getting into year 3 or year 4. And so I told her that I said, this I told her, "This is year 3." She's like, "But I've been playing for 3 years." I'm like, "Yeah, but you're, like, 1st into 2nd year, like, barely." I didn't say that, but I tried to say that really politely. I said, "You might have been at the piano for 3 years, but based on your instruction, you're really at the 1st year. And the music you wanna play, this is year 3." And it was hard to tell her that. It's hard to tell some of these parents, like, "Listen, we gotta start from scratch again." Alright. Private Eye says, "I'm drawing a reference of Superman by, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez right now. Cool. I am so unsatisfied, but I keep going. Now, private eye, I do not know visual art, and so I want to approach this with caution, and correct me if I'm mistaken. But do you work with the fundamentals, or are you drawing by eye? It's weird to say that, drawing by eye, because like when you play by ear. Um, are you drawing just based on what you see, or are you tracing? Because I don't know anything about drawing except one thing. If you get the fundamentals down, like the face proportions, the anatomic proportions, how to draw the hand, how to draw the foot, get those out of the way first before anything else. That I could be wrong saying that because I'm not a visual artist, but what I do say is, even if I'm inaccurate in my suggestion, what I am suggesting is fundamentals. If the human being, even in the form of a cartoon or an animation, I mean, that's still very difficult. So try to get the fundamentals down for sure. Stunning and brave Megatron said, I never had teachers aside from my elementary art teacher, and only ever took one class in junior high school. I just watched YouTube videos and looked up reference photos to get to where I am at now. That's good. I will say we are in the times where I think you could get very comparably good instruction videos on YouTube. Especially if the person already has teaching experience and just has a way with the camera, and a way with just conveying that, or having a camera on the drawing. So if there, I mean, I'm sure. In fact, actually, even if you can't afford an art teacher, like private eye, if you can't do that now, just be really busy and do a lot of research on who could be your instructor, even virtually, because instruction is really important. One of the more viral things out there, at least in the music world on YouTube, is self-taught musicians. So you'll see violin channels of like women who teach themselves, oh, this is my first day on the violin, this is my first month, this is my first year. And people are addicted to seeing the progress. And on the one hand, I do see a few of them who really, if that's self-taught, I will say, wow, you've got a lot of experience behind you having been self-taught. On the other hand, even if they're capable of playing fairly well in, by year 3 or 4, they have some technical and physical disadvantages that they could not really possibly see themselves. And it actually does take a teacher in the physical space to kind of correct their hand posture, their wrist, making sure the line of the bow, the arm is good. And maybe they can get that with YouTube, like with an instructional video. I think they could. I'd like to actually make videos of that myself, saying, "Hey guys, if you can only do this thing remotely, here's what you need to do." So maybe they see videos like that. But that constant weekly feedback with an actual instructor and a performer or musician saying, "Oh, get your hand this way. Make sure your hand is reaching this way." Because especially with my adult students will have very specific questions on technique. I'm like, glad you said that. No, it's not this factor, but you're close. It's actually this here that's causing this. And if they didn't have that weekly feedback, I don't know how much more advanced they could get just on their own. And so I want to commend these people who teach themselves, like, okay, you've got a lot down, but you need these minor tweaks just to get you a little bit better, and get you further down the road. Because actually violin, it's not like a sport, but it is incredibly athletic. And if you do not have the right hand technique, you can develop carpal tunnel, or you can develop a tennis elbow, or you can just really get your arms wrecked if you don't have the proper technique. And that kind of stuff is really important. That all said, though, Private Eye, and all you artists out there, I'm glad you guys are queuing in on inspirations, though. You're saying all of these, Peter Cullen, Frank Welker, Alex Ross, um, Lopez. You're pinpointing these very specific artists who are masters or who whether living or deceased, and that is important. So I'm glad you're working with excellence as a source of inspiration. So I don't want to discount that. That's very good. Brian says, I remember when my aunt would suggest that I enroll in an art school. I refused it since I had no faith that such schools would give me the kind of education that would create the next big hero. Oh, if you're talking about college and you're talking about the art department in college, at least in the United States, there's no way. Um, Maybe in South America, maybe in Japan, maybe in Australia, just not America, and I don't think Europe. Most art departments in the United States in the traditional university setting focus on the 20th century stuff. I could be wrong when it comes to visual art like painting and sculpting and sketchwork and all, but I don't think so. I think the the evolution or de-evolution of the liberal arts education is running rampant in the last, I mean, really in the last several decades. I mean, really, as far as well, as far back as like the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, but I think it started really taking off in the 1960s and 70s, and then it just kind of seeped into this philosophical mindset where it's like everything has to be questioned. No, 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 you can't work with traditional palettes. You can't work with traditional geometry. You can't work with traditional aesthetics. You can't work with traditional melody anymore. You gotta break those rules and cross those boundaries like to the extremities, right? It happened in music in Professor Geek's own college experience as a student, and then also really probably as teaching too. Not with his classes, but like his experience as a professor now. Definitely happened in the literature scene. Definitely happened in creative writing and composition. I didn't take composition class in the university because I didn't get my 2-year degree, but I was mostly in community college before just doing music, give or take a few classes like a language class or whatever. But if that's happened in writing and composition, and if it certainly happened in music, I really just can't imagine it not happening in the art department. It happened. The the one thing I will give credit for, unless that has also been deconstructed, give or take some very bad pieces of performances I've seen. I will say the dance department in this in University of Washington, I thought they were pretty competent. That might have gone south over the last 10 to 15 years, but I remember the dance department out of all the art departments being the one that and theater or drama rather. So drama was I think drama was in a lot of ways from what I could see, it looked a lot more competent, and dance also looked a lot more competent, but maybe like like I mean, I've seen modern dance where, like, people are staying still or whatever for a long time and then not doing much, but and it was more of a performance art than it was dance. I mean, I mean, it's not, like, as rigorous as ballet or some other dance forms, but I remembered the dance department being okay. That might have changed. I graduated 2011 with my bachelor's. So I left Seattle around 2012, and I got my bachelor's in 2011, so that's almost 14 years from now. Wait. Yeah. Oh, a little over, 13 years. Yeah. 13 years ago, I graduated college. Isn't that crazy? It's crazy. So you're right, Brian. If you do take art lessons, just research your local studios, like small local studios. Also, if you like their art, like if you see their exhibit or if they advertise, like, okay, I advertise in oil painting. I teach oil painting. I teach anatomy, all that stuff. I teach animation. Andreas says, when it comes to drawing, try to understand the basics like perspective. Perfect. Okay, that's exactly right. Human anatomy and proportions. Okay, you just said exactly. You answered my question then. Sorry, I should have read that before you eh, before I went on that little aside sidebar. All right, Stunning and Brave Megatron says, I also had a few drawing books and how to draw Batman the animated series book when I was younger. Yeah, book references are important. And in fact, R.T. Bear, Graham Nolan, and some other comic book artists, those great legends that are still with us, they did they recently did a stream. I think it was last week. They did a stream on I think it was like a panel of 5 or 6 people, and they showcased their favorite art books, to reference, and some of those books, I think it was R.T. Bear who had it, or maybe, no, I think it was, Billy Tucci who has done She, uh, the graphic novel She, some of his books, I wanted to just kinda, like, pull through the phone and just open it up myself because some of those art pieces, like the old school 20th century, almost like, Edward Hopper, but a little bit more contemporary or a little bit more atomic punk. Like, my heart started beating. I love old art, like old paintings of maybe the American landscape, but also film noir or science fiction. Oh, so good. I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, I feel like Billy Tucci just could have a stream just going page by page and just giving commentary. Oh, that'd be great. Such good ideas. So, yeah, some very good art books are good references. I have a stack. I don't even know if I can get through all of these books in my lifetime. But, a local violin shop in a city I used to live in said, "We're just giving away music. We have to give away all this music." So I have old school. I had to actually throw some of them away just for room, and they were falling apart. They were, like, over 100 years old, but I have these method books, violin teaching method books from the 1800s and the early 1900s, maybe even the 1700s, like, old school printed violin methods, and some of them, I look through them like, "Dang, these are rigorous," and I need to look through all of them just as a performer myself before I would ever teach it. And usually back then, the method book would have 3 different languages because they would be distributed in Europe and also in the States. It'd be French, German, and English, maybe Italian, depending. We use Italian language for musical expression, but for methods, it's French, German, and English. And, where was I going with that? But yeah, going to those references because like, oh, this was top-notch violin instruction back in the day. Yeah. Okay. Oh, yes, Private Eye is, correcting me. You do have the basics, learned when you were a kid. Just try to use that on the references. Good. Good. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Awesome. And maybe that wasn't my comments also weren't just for you, Private Eye, but just for all artists in general. Yeah. Let's see. Ace, not Ace. He's talking with Private Eye. Stunning and Brave says, so I think having the book at a young age also contributed to my mindset of being able to break down the human form into very basic shapes. That's good. Building up the figure from there. That's good. That's good. Yeah, Bruce Timm. Yeah, for all his political and social shenanigans, I will not fault him for his style. I love his style. Really his version of Poison Ivy is probably always gonna be my favorite. Like, she's beautiful, she's stylized, and not just her, just I mean, all the characters, like, yeah, yeah. And then you guys also say, Neil Adams and George Perez, yeah. Yeah, a lot of good influences, that's good, that's good. Um, Brian says, "You count the large number of video game heroes and heroines among my influences, Mega Man, Alice, Landale, and Phantasy Star." And Final Fantasy IV, of course, yeah, good. I have a question as a non-US citizen, what's a bachelor's degree? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so bachelor's degree is the standard 4-year degree. Sometimes, depending on your major, it could be up to 5 years, but it's usually a 4-year degree. So it's how we do it in the United States. I don't know how different it is from other places, other regions of the world, but we have the community college setting. That's an option, so you can get your 2-year degree and certification that would cover pretty much all your general education for college. Because if you go straight into the university from high school, you have at least 2 to 2.5 to almost 3 years worth of general education credits, math, science, literature, whatever the case is, and then you get into your major. I besides a Japanese language class, and one science class, when I entered University of Washington, it was all music. I didn't have to do any other general stuff. And it's because I went to community college for, like, a fraction of the price. And so I don't know how expensive community college is now, but, it's probably so comparably cheaper than just going straight into the university. I'm a huge advocate of community college. You'll have some ideology in the community college too, 'cause that's just the nature of the beast, but if you had to, I mean, if you truly considered the college education, give or take, just if you're in the States, go to the 2-year school. And I say this for one really specific reason. Yes, 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 you will have your ideologues teaching, but I had instructors, I had bad oh, man, I had this horrible experience with 2 women instructors. They had red hair, curly red hair, and they, like I had a horrible experience with one. Maybe I can get into a later time, but, I was only in 17. I said the wrong things in my essay, and she schooled me, and I had no idea. Like, I left the classroom. Well, it was in a private setting, but she basically told me how wrong I was, and at 17 years old, I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. Why are you mad at me?" I had no idea. It was a topical thing that said, "You should have wrote about this historical event in this way. Why did you write it about that way?" I was like, "I think honestly because my dad told me to." "Well, he's wrong." I mean, it was no college professor should ever tell such an impressionable age. 17 is, like, a very tender age, and I had no idea why she was mad, and then there was another lady. I'm just gonna tell the story. Um, she was a science teacher, and, basically, she told us to do a group project. So one guy was kind of the charismatic leader of the bunch. It was the 4 of us, and he said, "Let's do it this way." I'm like, "Okay, whatever. I'm just going along with the ride." And so we started filming each other at different points of the campus, then we presented it like a movie, telling our thoughts. She screamed at us, all of us. She said, "This is not what I had in mind for you to do, and you guys need to redo it or fail the grade." And instead of a movie, she wanted like a slideshow presentation. I was like, well, we don't have. So the guy who was in charge, he stormed out. He's like, I don't need to take this crap. Probably if I was older, I'd have said, I don't need this. I'll drop out of class. But again, I was like 17 or 18. So I'm like, she's like, do you have a presentation or don't you? And I'm like, I look at this other person. I can't remember who it was, like boy or girl. And I'm like, but they're the same age as me. I'm like, we have a presentation? Yeah, we have a presentation. She's like, well, good. And then I'm like, okay, so here are our thoughts. And then she softened. She's like, that was much better. I'm like, okay. So you all have some of those teachers at the community college. But sorry, man. I have vivid memories of horrible college experience. But anyway, you can get your 2-year, like your AA for Associate of Arts, if that still exists. And then you can go straight into your major in the music, in the university setting. So that's why I didn't need to do so much general education. I was never a freshman. I think I've said that before. I was never a freshman. I was never a freshman in high school because I went to a school that was 8th and 9th grade, and then I was never a freshman in college. So I never had the experience. Apparently, though, according to Professor Geek, people are really up in arms against the word freshman because freshman or freshman was like whatever. Let's see. So hopefully, probably that answers your question. So I didn't get my 2-year degree, but I got most of my education at the community college, and then I got 2 bachelors, so 2 four-year music degrees that took me, like, 5.5 years to complete 'cause it was pretty intensive or intense, whatever the case is. Don't know the word right now. And then I got my master's, and master's is a 2-year graduate degree after your bachelor's. And then I wanted to pursue a doctorate, which was like it's like a PhD, but in liberal arts, it's a doctorate, DMA, for Doctorate of Music and Arts, musical arts. I can't remember. And I wanted to study in Scotland or England or something, and then suddenly I tapped out. Like, I was like, "I don't feel like going to school anymore," and I didn't pursue a doctorate, and I don't regret it. I never needed a doctorate, after I decided, "No, I think I'm done." I think I just got a job, and I'm like, "You know, that's fine if it doesn't work out." Andreas recommends The Charismatic Voice, who does interesting analysis of vocals in different songs. Good to know. Hello, Jackson. I hope that's your name. Hello, Elias? Oh, I forgot to pronounce your name. Jones. You're adding to the video game. Uh, Samuel Proctor also adds a bachelor's degree is a degree where you have a single and charismatic let's see, let me say this again. A bachelor's degree is a degree where you have been single and charismatic and the longest out of your peers. It's it's not the longest degree if you're not a double major. If you're a double major, it could take time. I was a double music major and it took time. Like, I can't even imagine people being a music major and like a med student. That was crazy. Um, what was I going to say about that? I think the doctorate is the most, if it's not the longest, I think that's between 3 and 5 years, depending on your field of study. But I never pursued it. So it could change, it could be longer, it could be shorter. I don't know. All right. Oh, you were talking about characters. I was thinking music. Oh, so Elias Jones says, add to the video game soundtracks Heroes of Might and Magic Kick, operatic without being bombastic fanfare. That's cool. And then try the Sorceress theme for Heroes #2. Yeah, I don't know these games. That joke just flew by, Sound Graver. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. I mean, I could put the comment up and maybe see if the listeners will know. I'm bad with jokes, even not on the stream. Just to add, Private Eye says to the original conversation, I am a talented voice actor. I have a small career on dub acting. That's cool. But where I am, it's really small. That's okay. My teacher did tell me I was talented and you have oh and you the teacher had helped you develop. That's cool. Well, that's oh, bachelor being the single man. Sorry, man. When you know a term for so long and it could sound different to someone else who's not familiar with the term, I get it. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Samuel Proctor. Oh, that's embarrassing. That's okay. So sometimes jokes go by. They even in the physical space in the same room, people all laugh and I'm like, "What?" I'm kind of dense sometimes when it comes to jokes, except when comedy is well done. Not to say your comedy wasn't well done, Samuel Proctor. I'm just talking about stand-up comedians who are naturally born talented stand-up comedians. See where I went with that. See how I got out of that. That's not what you're supposed to say when you get out of a situation. All right. What was I going to add to that? Let's see. All right, I think that was everything. I thought I wanted to add something more. Oh, yes, I did. So for private eye, where you're saying your teacher um, noticed the talent you had and wanted to further develop the talent, and that is the whole role of the teacher. By the way, the teacher can give the best instruction, provide the best demonstrations, give you the best resources, and it means nothing if the student does not apply it. And I've known some teachers who, like, they really do, like, they sweat when it comes to student recitals because they believe, like, the output, the result of the student's performance reflects directly on them. Now, I guess it could, depending, but I'm comfortable enough in my own skin. I know I say the right things, especially with violin. Maybe voice is I gotta practice. If any of my voice students are listening to me right now, they don't know who I am on YouTube. Uh, bear with me, I'm getting there. But I have enough musical sensibility to really give them at least a good foundation of what they need to work with. If they want to be a professional musical actor, they need to go to another person who's has Broadway experience, and all that. But anyway, I can give the best foundation for my students, and if they don't apply it with their own dedication, if they do not apply my instruction, it's moot, it's meaningless. And there is something truly rewarding when my student comes in the next week and they're better at something. And maybe I even forget because I have, depending on the time of day or year, depending on the year, like let's say fall or winter, I can have close to 40 students a week. I capped it off at 35 this last year. And sometimes, especially with new students, I'll forget what I say to whom. And then they say, "Oh, no, you told me to do that." I'm like, "Hey, your hand is looking very good, and your tone is good, because of it. Your violin tone is good because of what you did with your hand just now." And they'll say, "Well, you told me to do that. You told me to see that over the week." I'm like, "Oh, thank you for listening then, because I forgot I said that." And it's application. It's all about application. So that's cool, private eye. That's good to hear that. Greatest stand-up comedian, George Carlin. Yeah, a lot of people and his contemporaries, yeah. Andrea says, "If my comic gets an anime, I'll consider hiring you to voice act Private Eye." That's cool. Yeah, voice acting is important. It's very important, and it's very hard to do. A lot of people don't realize the work that goes into voice acting. If you're not careful, if you put in, like, even if you're not trained and if you put in a lot of time, you could put in like 2 hours over a very small, segment of animation or commercial ad or something, you can hurt your voice. You can wear your voice out, especially with not singing, especially with speaking, and you try to get out that vocal fry. Like when you're speaking, you'll have a natural vocal fry that you won't pick up until it's recorded. And it's like, ooh, that like how the voice kind of trails like this, a little bit. Even if you're trying to be good, it's very hard. Wolf10, man, what's up? Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. I hope you've been doing well with your YouTube channel. Um, Talking about culture and pop culture and stuff. That's cool that you are hanging out. Oh wow, it's almost 90 minutes and it's almost 7 o'clock, so I might wrap it up in a second. But hey, hi, good to see you. Um, all right. Yeah, and Ace is also asking Private Eye, how do you break into voice acting? I'm interested in it, but no idea how to start. From my own experience, which was a horrible experience, I did like 2 or 3 commercial ads and it fell through. I got some practice in, but I worked for the wrong person, let's just say. Um, I would build a portfolio for commercial ads, for characters, for different maybe Audible, like reading an Audible book with different characters that would need different voices. Um, good, Wolf 10, good to see you, and good on your subs as well. YouTube has my channel's stagnating for different reasons, but that's another story. Actually, while we're on it, guys, I've been at like the 10 to 15 sub mark before 3K. I'm almost at 3,000 subs. If you haven't subbed already, go ahead and sub just to bump up my channel to 3,000. I'd like to hit that number before the end of the year, end of the summer. Um, But yeah, build your portfolio. Practice reading scripts. Commercial ads. Practice reading scripts of fiction, nonfiction, maybe speeches. Practice hearing a famous speech and imitating it or emulating it, whatever the case is, and build your portfolio. Read poetry, good poetry. Uh, Read songs. Like some songwriters write sheer poetry with their songs. Look those up. And I would say actually, I don't really know poetry that well. The first person I'm thinking of is Raymond Carver, I think. He had a kind of a natural tone to his poetry from the very little of Carver that I knew. He might be a little bit more on the modern side, but, just read out loud all sorts of different things, see how you can create a voice for them, and, you should be good. I would say do that. Do know that a lot of major studios are taking the AI route, but I can totally tell every time it's AI. I don't know if you've heard these commercials. Um, I remember this woman on a commercial saying, there's a lot of people choosing AI." And I'm like, "You sound like AI." And you might think that AI sounds fake or false or phony. Like, you sound all of that. Did you know that the voice you're hearing is AI? I was like, "Yes." I sensed it. So, but just yeah, build a portfolio. But anyway, Private Eye might have some really good suggestions. That's cool. That's cool. Private Eye, do you do character work or do you do ads, commercial ads? I mean, that's really cool. Anyway, that we hit the 90-minute mark. So just let me just kind of cap it off, and then talk a little bit more on just updates on channels and stuff. But yeah, so just know out there that in fact I did a survey. I should actually see. Let me see real quick what the number was. I posted on my community tab about a day ago or so. Um, let's see what it says. I posted my community tab on my community tab a poll. Said, and I asked the question: Is talent a myth? Yes or no? And 59 votes. 93% say no, and 7% currently say yes. So if you wanted to cast your vote, that's fine. But so a lot of people, I would that 9% out of almost 60 people, that's a huge majority of people who think talent is a myth. Talent does exist. It is your duty and responsibility, and if it's in your passion, to commit to developing that talent, and then you will go far. There are people out there who will never have their talent see the light of day because they choose not to. Yeah, it's just I mean, that's almost the biblical parable right there, bearing your talent, the wicked servant bearing their talent. In the case that was more of a biblical and, faith-based principle on a matter of faith and your devotion to God, but it's still applied to, I've been given this natural ability. Will I work at it or won't I? And as an experienced teacher and musician, especially with my students, I have there were some very bright, talented children that crossed my path. They thought either it was boring or they didn't wanna work at it or practice, and they'll never know. It's kinda sad when you think about it. They'll never know how good on the violin they could be or in music they could be. They'll never know because they thought it was pointless to practice. So talent is there, but you are required to develop it. That's just the way the ball bounces. So anyway, let's go ahead and wrap it up there. Just see a little bit of the chat before I sign off. Um, the channel Beats by AI makes songs on different topics, and some of them are outright bangers. Fried and Crispy Can't Resist Me is one of the best. Yeah, I mean, I know it's out there. I've heard some pretty convincing AI music, but, at the same time, it's like I recently listened to this gorgeous not gorgeous, I will say I don't wanna say stunning either, that's such an overused word, but there's this London artist, this songwriter that I just happened upon on YouTube. She was actually playing the piano when I discovered her. Syrian is her name. I'll put it in the chat. Cerin. She unfortunately doesn't do a lot of music on a prolific level. I follow her and I went on her emailing list, because her songs, especially a couple of them, are so masterfully done. She has a beautiful voice, flawless composition, beautiful words, beautiful lyrics. I mean, top tier music. And then I'm like, that is proof that AI is pointless because no such AI can develop the quality that I had heard with this woman. And I hope she produces more music in the future. I haven't seen her produce anything yet in the last year or so, but she's very talented, very talented. Oh, shoot, I said it. I didn't even mean to say it, but she's talented. And I know she's had years of experience and practice behind her, but she's also very talented. So, yeah, it might be my fault, says Stunning and Brave Megatron. It's overused now. Yeah. Thanks again for being a channel member. You and Ace and my wonderful prof. Daniel Heron or Soundtracks with Birdman is also a channel member. But if you guys wanted to be a member for $2 a month to support me, and your channel names will be at the front or at the start or the end of my upcoming videos, whichever that looks like. I'm going to really start getting serious about musical analysis for popular songs. Well, not popular songs, but songs that really mean a lot to me in the way of art and pop culture. Maybe not even contemporary pop culture, maybe something that's timeless. And then maybe some video game soundtracks, although there are some good channels out there. But whatever form it's going to take, I'm going to get really serious about musical analysis because when I talk about it, I have this one student who we just talk about music theory, and I forget how excited I get. I get so excited when I talk about musical analysis. I love it so much. I'm a composer, so it's bound to happen. But like, I enjoy teaching violin, especially with my advanced students if I have any. But man, there is something about teaching theory and composition that is just, or musical analysis and composition that is just it brings so much life, like just so much. And so I really want to get serious about it. It'll take some time to develop these kind of videos, but I will get back into SuperCollider as well and other musical things as well in the meantime. But anyway, your channel membership at $1.99 a month just supports this channel. It really, actually, it really is a good uptick when I do have more channel members, and your names will be on those videos for when we do that. I'm also going to do more. It takes a little time, but I will do more piano transcriptions. I've got a playlist. Let me actually go ahead and put it in the chat here. I really need to just start showcasing my music a little bit more in my work. But recently, I've been doing playlists, or excuse me, piano transcriptions, and I will share the playlist right here if I can. Yeah, share. I'll embed it. Yeah, I can do that, right? It's just 2 piano pieces so far, but, I did one called The Old Doll, which, by the way, you can find this sheet music, I'm selling it online. I would like oh, I don't think I don't think that link went I don't think that link appeared well. Anyway, but you can see it's on a playlist called Piano Transcriptions or no, I changed it. Video game sheet music. So far, just piano. And it's gonna be more if it's not the beginner level, it's gonna be the more intermediate level. I do see some piano transcriptions out there, but they're a little bit more advanced or they're just plain sloppy. I'm actually speaking of talent, like I started really developing transcription skills where I'm just writing the music out on this software, just getting it nice and clean and stuff for people. Um, yeah, but in any case, that's all I'll have to say. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening. I know that was a lot. Yeah, everyone's all talking about AI now, but that's nice. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just doing last minute comments. Private Eye says we take our piano, excuse me, piano. We take our Spanish dubs very seriously. That's good. That's good. Oh, talent is also a Greek currency, says Samuel. Yeah, that's true. Anyway, so more streams coming Sunday, Sunday afternoon as per usual. You know, unless it's a holiday, and maybe some music in some form or another, just into the week if I have the time. But I've been really just having a good time composing and writing my science fiction and all that. But so thank you guys so much for talking about talent with me. Until I see you next, keep producing, preserving, and promoting that wonderfully good art that you love that takes talent to make. And I will catch y'all later.